plug in the objectives, plug in what I need. So, in asking the why, it really has sort of changed my way of planning lessons. So I've sort of found that the old way of doing it, for me, wasn't getting me where I wanted to go.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. And that, we're gonna go into something that's a little, was eye-opening for me, and it took me a long time, I'm still trying to grasp it. And that's where they talked about, through lines. Did you catch that when they talked about through lines? Okay, anybody wanna talk about what you think with through lines? We heard that at this Project Zero more than we've ever had before. I really heard it from the group from Michigan, where the whole school system, you remember that, well, those that were there, the superintendent who got up and said, forget the test, you know, I don't care about the test. We were all like, yes, yes, you know, and I was like, okay, we can do it. We can do it, okay? Of course, I got the superintendent there, but that's okay. In this building, we can do it, okay? It's like, as long as you're teaching them to think, how can they not do better on a test? So, but they talk constantly about through lines, and at this particular school that, or I think there's a grouping of schools, but they have through lines for every grade level. Does anyone want to comment about through lines? Because I know Heather's been working on that somewhat, on through lines.
Risk
Go
failure,
for it.
Sandy, I'm proud of you.
So y'all can tease me if you want, but to me, through lines comes across like when we're talking about the theme of a story, and I kind of equate it to when a person gives a birthday party. The most important thing that's going on is not the theme of the birthday party, but if you have a cowboy theme, you have a napkins and cake and plates and all that. And so it's kind of the thread that weaves things together. That's how I look at it.
Oh, that was
exactly
excellent. Yay, Sandy!
And that's exactly what a through line is. It is a thread that weaves everything together. When you think of your objective, you pull that obviously from the curriculum. The through line is sort of the overarching, all year long thread. For instance, in social studies, the through line for the year may be something along the lines of, sorry, my allergies, maybe something along the lines of, it is important to understand your past so that you know where you are today. That would be an overarching through line. In terms of reading, a through line that I have, it sort of changes depending on whether we're working on drawing conclusions or cause and effect or whatnot. But it's the same idea that, and I'll give you an example of drawing conclusions, that understanding how to draw conclusions helps you understand your world. Helps you understand the importance of reading to your world. But I mean, the through line is just the overarching thread for the year.
Right, and it can be by subject matter. This particular school had gotten to the point where they had gone through the subject matter by subject matter, and then they looked at, I think, by grade level, and that was that jump. I was like, how did you get there? They went by grade level and looked at all of their materials, took it from a social studies reading, and we started in that direction a little, especially 4th and 5th grade, where even their novel studies and whatever relate to the time period in social studies and all of that. So that they then took it to, okay, we're going to be studying, let's say it's American history or whatever, and this, how, right. And so they connected all of that together so that they're learning how this particular part of history helps us understand the change or whatever that we have going on now. So they took it by grade level. They had actually perfected it to that point. I think that's, I think it's a great idea. I think it does give you a lot of direction. I think it's easier to start out by subject matter, probably, and look at, okay, what is my overarching goal for them to learn from social studies, especially in that lower grade, because there's not a lot of meat to your stuff. So if you can bring in and say, okay, this is what, like, was it communities and communities?
Second grade is community.
Communities goes across the board, and that's what's so strange. It starts in kindergarten and then it picks up again. And maybe defining, okay, communities and to what? What in kindergarten are they learning about a community as opposed to what are they learning about a community in second grade? So there is some different, continuity, but also differentiation. So it does scaffold.
Is that going back to the old whole language approach, where every subject had to do kind of with the same thing?
That was themes.
Yeah, that's themes, and I'm not sure it's quite the same because it's really more for them to understand what is the outcome that I'm gonna learn from this.
Was that those
Overarching.
questions they had posted? Each room had those questions, like 5 questions posted.
I don't remember
Remember the
seeing
clips they showed us? I don't know if it was one of those main talks or one of the little breakout sessions, but they had these 5 questions that, like, every kindergarten class had the same 5 questions posted. And that was the
That would
end
be the
game.
through line.
That would be a through
In
line, right?
fact, when we went to Harvard, Linda and I were there, they had through lines that ran through the entire conference. And that was the first time I'd ever heard of it. I didn't know what a through line was. And so, but the cool thing that I recall about it was that by day 3, it was really starting to make sense, where you were getting the continuity in terms of, okay, this is the big picture. This is what I need to walk away with. This is what I need to take back to Memphis with me. And so it really made me start to think, but I'll be honest, I mean, for me, that's been a hard concept to grasp. This year, I've been more able to try to play with it and see what I think it means. But it's sort of a step in the process of getting there. And I think it's something that maybe as we head into next year, that maybe we can think of just overarching through lines with the goal of eventually getting to the point where we own it as a grade levels.
I think part of the reason it's a little confusing is sometimes they're presented as questions and sometimes they're presented as statements.
Exactly
So
right.
they can kind of confuse you as to the purpose or what it is. So I like the way when, on page 58, it discusses all of her questions that she has posted around the room, and then later on, in 97 or so, the children are presented with this topic, and they choose which question they're gonna use to, in application with that topic.
Yes.
And so then they answer it themselves. So I
Right.
thought that was interesting, a good way to do it.
Yeah, and to follow up on that on page 105, when it talks about what does a through line mean to you now, what does a through line connect to, and inform you about what you're studying. It is a routine because the questions are asked over and over again. At times, Heather stops class and holds an impromptu discussion using the questions, or she asks the questions more formally as part of a writing assignment. So she constantly goes back to those questions throughout the course of the year to go back through with her through lines. The questions effectively guide students' individual thinking as well. Asking oneself these questions in the midst of study facilitates the process of making connections and deepening understanding. In both the public and private realms, this connection-making routine, when coupled with the through-line questions, helps students manage and direct their thinking in the course by constantly pulling them toward the bigger picture and ideas. So, and I think you can go back even into your own course of study, those courses that you kind of knew, okay, this is what I'm gonna get out of this course. This is the direction I'm heading. This is what I'm gonna get from it. When that professor or that teacher had that connection making all the way through, it really helped you get a deeper understanding of what you were studying, rather than some of this just scattered information just to put it out there. So that when you studied, I know when I studied policy, that was one of the, we went through all these different things, but we always want to connect it to how does policy affect this? What change are you going to make when you put this policy in force? So that you've constantly got this, okay, what is my driving force here throughout everything? So I thought that was interesting. Anybody else on through lines?
I'm thinking along the lines of our team teaching next year. Let's say Joyce and I are together. We could have the same, our kids could see the same questions posted obviously tweaked a